Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So this story is interesting. And wait a minute, let me make sure I'm up first. Yes, I am up. The world is good. A while back, maybe a few days ago, I did a video where I was screaming kind of like if they ask you if you were cheated, say yes. Now somebody else kind of made this point of, well, look, you can kind of wax and wane on it. You can say it in a more political way, but make sure you ask for something. You're Bernie Sanders. You know, it's yes, you cheated me, and yes, we need to do X, Y, Z. Like, we need to make reforms. We need to have radical transparency. As if by magic, the very next day, I think it was the day and the day after, Bernie Sanders comes out as if he listened to my piece, word for word, and said, we need radical transparency in regards to voting. We need to get rid of superdelegates, etc., etc., etc. I'm going to read this article. And let's talk about the meaning, because on this channel, I like to search for meaning. It may not, you know, it may be a universe that doesn't care one way or the other, but from a human standpoint. So this is Politico. How to fix the Democratic Party. It's time we come together to enact real reform. Only then can we defeat Donald Trump and retake the country. Now, I'm going to say this before I start. The attack that Bernie Sanders is using here is a good attack. It's a damn good attack. It is the attack that needs to be had for any other attack to take place. You'll see what I mean as we go through this. I'm not going to read everything because this very specific point I want to get to. So he goes in and lists the Democrats' failures. Since 2009, it has lost more than 1,000 seats in state legislatures across the country. Republicans now control the White House and 34 out of 50 governorships, as well as the United States House of Representatives and the Senate. In 26 states, Republicans control the governor's mansion along with the entirety of the state legislature. This is not just so-called deep red states. It's true in Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Florida, and New Hampshire, all of which will be critical to defeating Trump in 2020 and in drawing congressional districts following that year's census. What is especially absurd about this situation is that the American people strongly oppose all elements of Trump Republicans' agenda. Fewer than 1/3 of Americans support the Trump and Republican tax cuts for the wealthy, and just 12% support their plan to throw tens of millions of people off of health care. The majority of Americans understand that climate change is real. Donna Brazile Books makes it abundantly clear how important it is to bring fundamental reforms to the Democratic Party. Now, just because he might not be, you know, over the top and belligerent saying, yes, they cheated me, my acolytes, my followers, that doesn't necessarily mean he's not using that to pivot off. He's using that to pivot off. Bernie Sanders doesn't have to be a blunt and say it out loud. I would prefer him to be blunt and say it out loud because I think you need to call out cheating. He's taking a different tact. And in this particular tact, it's the American public already knows it's cheating. I don't have to be blunt and overt about it. They already know it's cheating. And they understand a political answer, if that makes sense. But these are issues of culture, and I find these things weird. Like, your wife fixes you some cake. You take a bite of the cake, and you're like, ugh, this is interesting. It's an interesting flavor. What kind of cake mix did you use? Well, she understands that this means he doesn't like the cake. He dislikes it. He doesn't like it. It's understood. Now, if I take a bite of the cake and say, oh my God, this is horrid, there's something different in that. Even though both things amount to be the same thing, there's something different. There's like a meta-narrative on top of the way that I answer the question, not necessarily that goes beyond the content of what I'm saying in that particular answer. Bernie Sanders coming out and giving that particular that spiel that, well, in Donna Brazile's mind, whoever knew what was in Donna Brazile's mind, he did it for political reasons. I guess I'm making a point. He's pivoting off of that, even though he's not necessarily being over the top, hammering on it. I have ideas as to why, and I think some of this involves, if I'm running in 2020, I need to make as little enemies as possible. That's what I think. Donna Brazile's recent books makes it abundantly clear how important it is to bring the fundamental reforms to the Democratic Party. The party cannot remain an institution largely dominated by wealthy and inside the Beltway consultants. It must open its door and welcome into its ranks millions of working people and young people who desperately want to be involved in determining our nation's future. Last year, Hillary Clinton and I agreed upon the Unity Commission, Reform Commission. Here we are. This is the crux of this entire piece right here. Last year, Secretary Hillary Clinton and I agreed upon the need for a Unity Commission to move the party in a new direction and more democratic direction. In a few weeks, this group will have its final meeting in Washington, D.C. and will decide if we're going to move forward in an inclusive way or continue the failed approach. This is not some abstract, insular debate. The future of the democratic institutions or Democratic Party institutions has everything to do with whether or not the Democratic Party has grassroots energy to effectively take on Trump, the Republican Party, and the reactionary agenda, or whether we remain the minority. What are some of the reforms that are desperately needed? Tell us, Sanders, what are some of the reforms? First, it is absurd that the Democratic Party now gives over 700 superdelegates, almost 1/3 the number of the presidential candidate needs to win the nomination, the power to control nominating process and ignore the will of the voters. That's important. You're talking about all of these superdelegates that has all of this authority. Meaning before you step foot into the race, before you dictate that you yourself wants to be a part of the race, the primary, somebody already has a large share of the vote total. The public hasn't voted one iota. They haven't voted for anything. And this person already has a large majority of the vote total needed to win the race. Yes, he's right. Second, in contrast to Republicans, Democrats believe in making voting easier, not harder. That's not true. That is not true at all. We believe in universal and same-day voter registration and ending antiquated, arbitrary, and discriminatory voting registration laws. These same principles must apply to our primaries. Dude, if they don't apply to your primaries, then they don't apply at all. That means they're contextual. They use those things when they need those things. Meaning, yes, they're going to exclude you in the primaries using the same things that the Republicans do in the general election. And yes, because they're shameless, they're going to bitch about the fact that Republicans are using the same thing. Certainly you know this. He's doing this to shame them, but still, it's aggravating. It's aggravating to read, that's all. The same principles must apply to our primaries. Our job must be to reach out to independents and young people and bring them into the democratic process. Independent voters are critical to general electoral victories. Locking them out of the primaries is a pathway to failure. Look, let's be honest. Politicians are not in the business of bringing voters to the polls. They're in the business of bringing their voters to the polls. There's a massive difference in those things. Yes, they're going to lock some voters out because there's certain people who they want to make those votes. So New York having their primaries in a particular way is done purely to exclude people from voting. It's not done to make the process easier. When they were shutting down polling locations, Sanders, did you think that they were trying to make the process easier for your voters or harder? They were trying to make it harder. You're trying to make it harder. So let's stop pretending. Stop pretending. Get rid of this failed illusion that these parties want people to come to the polls. They want their people to come to the polls. If that means suppressing the vote to limp over the finish line, they're going to suppress the vote to limp over the finish line. That's exactly what takes place. In that regard, it's absurd that New Yorkers must change their party registration 6 months before the Democratic primary in order to participate. It's not absurd. It has a point. Lock people out of voting. That's what the point. Third, in states that use caucuses, we must make it easier for working people and students to participate. While there is much to be said for bringing people together, face-to-face discussion why they support the candidate of their choice. Not everybody is able to participate because of work, childcare, or obligations. A process must be developed that gives everyone the right to cast a vote, even if they're not physically able to attend the caucus. Oh, here's the last part. Finally, if we're able to succeed, we must fully appreciate Brazil's revelations and understand the need for more transparency in financial and policy workings of the Democratic Party. Essentially, radical transparency. Hundreds of millions of dollars flow in and out of the Democratic National Committee with little to no accountability. That is simply not acceptable. Bernie Sanders is absolutely and completely right. And if you are trying to wage a war against the Democratic Party, which is the way I look at this, I think in 2018 and 2020, there's going to be a war. Our revolution, these other groups, Justice Democrats, all these groups are trying to take over what it means to be a Democrat. Do you believe that the people who are entrenched, the neo-libs, who's been there for the past 30, 40 years, are going to go up without a fight? And the answer is no. Hillary Clinton has been building up her infrastructure all throughout the United States in order to fund money to people, their super PACs. So, yes, 2018, 2020. But this is not... Wait a minute. Jesus Christ, I lost my train of thought. Look, I understand what Bernie Sanders is saying. Bernie Sanders has a point. Yes, Bernie Sanders is right. Radical transparency. Yes, he's right. You've had bombshell revelations saying that you cheated one of the candidates. Fair enough. The public itself believes that that particular candidate was cheated. Fair enough. If you want people to trust you again, you need to open this process up so people can see it. A, getting rid of these superdelegates. B, opening the primaries so people can actually go and vote. And C, making it easier for people with caucuses. And D, what are you doing with the money? What are you doing with the money? If this was a chess match, this is where the battle lines were drawn. And I would make the case that this has to be where the battle lines are drawn. Whether Bernie Sanders is going to scream about rigging and be belligerent about it or not, Bernie Sanders is bright enough to understand that they cheated him. He understands it. Whether he might not be over the top about it, but he certainly understands it. He also understands that if he wants to have any presidential run, you need to get rid of those superdelegates. You need to open those primaries. He understands it. That's why he's attacking on these fronts. He also understands that they need him. He's the most popular senator or most popular politician in this country in spades. And they've been trying to leverage his credibility and his popularity to make some light on their own, to shine some light on themselves. So yeah, him making this case, making this argument. Donna Brazile said, you guys cheated. We need to come up with ways to allow the public to trust us again. Those are the lines. Those are the battle lines. If the DNC can get away from this unity commission without doing anything on that front, then they win. And Bernie Sanders has a ridiculously difficult path to get any kind of nomination because those superdelegates are going to be firmly against him the next time around. If he can get them to budge on this, to any degree, to budge, particularly if he can get them to budge on a significant degree, either open primaries or the superdelegates, Bernie Sanders has massively improved his chances of winning. Now, here's the catch. This is the point I want to get to. Where is it? What did I do with that? Alright. I had a video up that I wanted to show because that video was perfect. But I don't see where that video is gone now. Here we are. Alright, so this is important. This is extremely important because we're ultimately talking about a republic. Is this a representative government or not? And if it is, how is all of those votes chosen in that way? Meaning the democratic process, the democratic primaries are rigged. They're structurally rigged. And let me show you what I mean. This is Aunt Debbie being too honest about her corruption or the corrupt nature of that particular party.
Clinton lost to Bernie Sanders in New Hampshire by 22 percentage points, the biggest victory in a contested Democratic primary there since John F. Kennedy. But it looks as though Clinton and Sanders are leaving the granite state with the same number of delegates in their pockets because Clinton has the support of New Hampshire's superdelegates, these party insiders. What do you tell voters who are new to the process who says this makes them feel like it's all rigged?
Unpledged delegates exist really to make sure that party leaders and elected officials don't have to be in a position where they are running against grassroots activists. We are, as a Democratic Party, really highlight and emphasize inclusiveness and diversity at our convention, and so we want to give every opportunity to grassroots activists and diverse, committed Democrats to be able to participate, attend, and be a delegate at the convention. And so we separate out those unpledged delegates to make sure that there isn't competition between them.
I'm not sure that answer would satisfy an anxious young voter, but let
I love Jake Tapper's response. He's like, she basically said, look, we have superdelegates to keep out people who we don't want to run. There's certain people who we don't want in this process, and we, the Democratic establishment, want these votes to put our thumb on the scales. That's essentially what she just said. Jake Tapper, understanding what she just said, yeah, that's probably not going to make anybody feel better that the process is not rigged. It sounds like you just said that the process was rigged. There are certain people who we know are going to vote in a particular way, and we give those people the superdelegates. We make them superdelegates. And lo and behold, they vote a particular way. And in the last election, they voted for Hillary Clinton overwhelmingly before it was even started. There's a really good clip of Joe Manchin saying, I had already given her my vote. Joe Manchin, he was being honest. I had already given her my vote. I couldn't do anything about it. I had already promised her my vote. If Sanders has, put it this way, that needs to be broken. That needs to be broken. Now, my question is, and I know there was a lot of wood to chop, but I needed to set it to explain what the hell I'm talking about. Assume for the moment that they have this meeting, this Unity Commission meeting, and they will have it. And assume for the moment they leave that Unity Commission meeting with squat. Still got your superdelegates. You still have your closed primaries. Nothing changed. It was a show trial. The Unity Commission purely was there just for show and optics. The moment that the audience took their eyes away, they're purging members. What if they call your bluff? And I guess I'm asking the question, is it a bluff in the first place? If you leave that process with squat, if you leave it with nothing, if they say, yeah, you guys can go fuck yourselves. We're keeping those open primaries. We're keeping those superdelegates. Hell, what if they say, we'll give you 100 superdelegates. We are still going to keep 600. What do you do? That's what I'm immensely curious about. What do you do? I hear Nina Turner flirting in this way. But it's like, that's one thing for you to flirt that way. It's another thing you do it. Same thing with unions. What if they call your bluff? So yeah, they hear you flirt loudly about maybe we need to have another third party. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? All of these groups, it's like they bask in Democrats' apathy just because of how batshit crazy and rabid the Republicans are. But this is purely this thing of comparison. It doesn't necessarily have to be this way. You could have somebody that fully and purely represents your particular interests. That's clearly not what's taking place. That's clearly not what's taking place. If they call your bluff, if they say we're not giving an inch, this Unity Commission was purely here while the public was looking at the fact that we were cheating you. The moment that the public eyes turn away, which is, I suspect, the reason why Bernie Sanders is writing this in the Politico now. He's trying to draw attention to the fact that, hey, they're about to have the last Unity trial, or Unity reform thing. Let me ask this. Does Sanders believe he's going to have a bloodless revolution? And I'm using blood purely, not in a literal sense, purely figuratively. Does he believe he's going to have a bloodless revolution? Does he believe that everybody is going to be kumbaya and buddy-buddy and friends throughout the entirety of this process? If so, they're going to absorb him and his group right back into the fold. And when somebody is, again, running against Donald Trump, if nothing took place, nothing was given. Let me say it this way. This war needs to be waged in this particular front in the way that he's waging it. But he needs to win on this front. This is not something where it's a push or Sanders gets nothing and everything looks great when it goes around again. If you're going to say, I have a club, and you want them to respond to the fact that you have a club, are you going to be willing to use that club if they call your bluff? That's my question. That's my question to all these people. I understand the flirting with the Democratic Party thing. I get it. It's like, oh, we're going to have a third party. We're going to threaten the Democrats. We're going to have a third party. We're going to threaten Democrats. Maybe we can shame them and scare them into moving to the left. Maybe we can do all of these things. But if you beat your wife and you go out fornicating that night and you know that she's going to be at home when you get there, what impetus at all does an individual have to change in that situation? I'm making this case that unless Sanders is willing to get to the point where he says, there is nothing here. There's nothing here. And I understand he doesn't necessarily want to take that step because from his standpoint, this country is somewhat rigged in the way that it does this two-party system. It excludes other parties. So I understand he wants to use the edifice itself that's there for the Democratic Party to do what he needs to do. Fair enough. I get it. He believes sheepdogging people into that particular party is necessary because he wants to use those people again in 2020. Again, I get it. Fair enough. Fair enough. But say all of your best laid plans, all of these ideas of unity and everything else, all of it goes to squat. Let's say they tell you to kick rocks. They tell you to kick rocks. What do? Are you willing to say there's nothing to be had here at this particular party? And are you willing to work with the Independence Party or all of the other little groups themselves, all the little left groups? Are you willing to work with those guys or pull those guys together when the party flips you off once again? I mean, God damn it, man. You had a situation where they literally cheated you outright. People donated $220 million to your particular campaign. Not to mention the hopes they invested in that particular campaign. And this idea that, oh my God, this country and this world can be better and we finally have somebody to represent our interests. You can understand that those people will feel some kind of way if you're supporting the machine that actually did the cheating itself. And not just did the cheating itself, to be paraded about in this kind of show trial of sorts, or this show unity commission, that at the end of the day, if nothing gets done, if nothing gets accomplished, the Nomika Kansis, the Bernie Sanders, the Democratic apologists or the Democratic appeasers, what are you guys going to do? How much do you appease? At which point do you say, okay, enough is enough? Is there a point where you say enough is enough? When they're purging members for Ellison, and Ellison still comes out saying, yeah, I'm still supporting these guys. At what point? At what point? Mike Tyson gets into the ring, bites the guy ear off. And you think to yourself, how did they not evict him from boxing? At which point, if you're not going to evict the guy from boxing after he bites somebody's ear off, at which point are you going to evict somebody from boxing? Do they have to kill somebody to do it? I'm making this point. At which point, what's the line in the sand? Where's the point where they get slapped one last time and they're like, all right, that is the last slap I'm going to take from you? Where's the Ike and Tina moment in the limo? Where's that point? Where's that point? I like the spirited talk. I think the attack is right. If you're not willing to use a brick, though, that's the question. We're going to know very soon what's going to take place with this Unity Reform Commission. And I am fantastically curious on what's going to be the results of Sanders, Nomika Kansis, Justice Democrats, and some of these other people, even Nina Turner, for that matter. If these guys come out and say, we don't care about your reforms, we're not doing squat. We did this just to get out of the public's view. We're out of the public's view. Nothing changes. What happens? What happens? What happens? What happens? That's what I want to know. That's what I want to know. All right, let's see what the audience is. 24 minutes. That's kind of long. My bad, guys. Oh, Warrior Waitress. Thank you. Hey, Jamal. Much love to you. At the live Jimmy Dore show in Portland last night, I got to chat him up, so I recommended your channel to him. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Much love. Totally appreciate it. Dax Jacobson. The DNC is training birds to land at the command of Hillary Clinton for 2020. As opposed to those birds just shitting on Tom Perez. That's the funniest shit ever. Robert Ray, Warriors, you rock, Warrior. Yes, she does. Behemoth 77, Bernie is all talk, do something or shut up. He is doing something, by the way. I'm not. This may seem antagonistic just because of the way I'm putting it. Sometimes the way I do things come across that way. I guess my feeling is there is no such thing as a bloodless revolution. Like, I understand that you're trying to thread this needle between Trump and the Democrats. But at some point, you got to pick a pony, man. And it's this feeling of, yes, I understand, you pick your pony. In this sense, Donald Trump is a fucking maniac. So, I get it. I do get it. This goes more into line of, what do you expect from the party? What are the concessions that you expect from the party? What are you going to do if they don't do X? Meaning, are you prepared to do Y if they don't do X? And are those things clear and stated? Otherwise, this is just kind of fuzzy and nebulous. And at the end of the day, at the end of the Reform Commission, based on this rhetoric, Sanders has come on and says, we have a hard road ahead of us, and blah, 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 blah. I'm curious to know, is he at the point? Or, if he's not, at which point do you say, I'm done. I'm done. Nothing can be done. Nothing can be done. I will work with unions. I will work with independents. I would work with whoever I can get my hands on. We're going to start something new. And we're going to take back the night. At which point? At which point? Because ultimately, that's the brick that you have. And, I mean, our revolution is doing a great job. Don't get me wrong. And yes, I understand trying to coax this thing until you get to 2020. Fair point. Fair point. This is just one of those things of, how much provocation are you willing to accept? And what are the grounds that you're willing to walk? And is there any ground whatsoever to which you're willing to walk? I make a really big point. The Superdelegates thing was purely there to keep out people like Bernie Sanders. And is Bernie Sanders going to continue to participate in the process if they continue to keep the same things to keep out people like Bernie Sanders? You have a fundamentally structurally rigged process. And are you going to function in a process that's structurally rigged? Are you going to do it again? That's my point. That's what I'm getting at. Why participate in something if you know that thing is structurally rigged? And these battle lines that are being drawn, it's like, you know, like putting an E4 pawn and fighting on this E4, E5 point. You need to win that point. That's not one of those things of, oh, golly gee, we just go on. No, you have to win that point. That's one of those things that you don't pass go until you get to that particular point. Because otherwise, how are you going to make a valid case that you can get through the primaries again if all of these superdelegates are going to be lined against you again? That's, yeah, I don't want to seem overly critical because that's not really what it is. This is one of those things of, what is he going to do? I don't know an answer to this question. And I've yet to hear Sanders get to the point of saying, I'm willing to walk. I haven't heard that. I would argue that that should be said. That should be said, and he should mean it. Not necessarily because he's going to do it at this very moment, but at the very least that it's there, it is clear, it's undeniable that if you do X, there is a consequence. Or better yet, there's a consequence for you not doing X, for you not getting rid of these superdelegates. Yeah, you should do it. It's a big fucking deal. It's a big fucking deal. You were cheated. Like, I feel like I'm crazy for keep making this point. Like, you're cheated in a political process that we were trying to make the determination of who's going to be the president of the United States. One of the parties chose who they wanted to be president of the United States. Yes, there was cheating in the internal process itself, but the process itself was rigged. She started with all of these superdelegates. The money that flowed to all these people, for the most part, made them more, you know, in line with Clinton at this point. She had them better purse strings. The entirety of the process was rigged. There's nothing to stop this process from being fundamentally rigged in the exact same way. If you cannot win that point, meaning if you cannot compel them to change that process, why are you running through the same process? Why are you acquiescing to something that you consider to be fundamentally corrupt and fundamentally rigged, and that you know they rigged you? I mean, come on, man. That's all. That's all. That's all. It just annoys me. It just annoys me. We should reduce superdelegates, Bernie. We should get rid of superdelegates. The position should be, we need to get rid of superdelegates. That's the point. While it might be interesting to pick apart Sanders' mind potential strategies, it is useless to do so. I'll say it a million times. Yes, you will, Gardner. Yes, you will. let me ask you this. Certainly, Gardner, you would agree with me that what goes on in a person's mind to some degree is going to affect their behavior, meaning what they do in the external world. Somewhere along the way, the subjective universal on the inside churns about something, and it appears in our physical matter reality. The only way as a human being for you to understand some level of consistency with the next human being, because I can't read their thoughts, is to understand the philosophical way in which they were working, meaning understand what's in them, what's pushing them to behave in a particular way. This behavior, depending upon how you view Sanders, can be cut in multiple ways. What's in his mind is vitally important to what you think he is going to do. Otherwise, how do you know what he's going to do? How can you even have a conception of what he's going to do if you're not even thinking about what's in his mind? It matters. It matters. It definitely matters. It's Bernie's day to grandstand. I thought that was every week on Tuesdays. Liz Warren on Thursdays. D. Martin. So in other words, let's keep the primaries undemocratic. Behemoth 7077. Yes, that's my point. That's my point. If they're willing to say, we're going to keep the primaries undemocratic, why are you participating in their primaries? That's what I'm getting at. That's the fundamental thing of what I'm getting at. I'm trying to nail that down in the sense of, if you know they cheated you, if you saw that clip that said Deborah Wasserman-Schultz, we use superdelegates to keep out people like Bernie Sanders. We don't want to be running against grassroots campaigns. That's an honest moment. I don't think she realized the gravity of what she was saying, but whatever. If you know that the process is structurally and fundamentally rigged, why give any legitimacy to the process? That's what I'm getting at. If that quote-unquote unity commission can't come about a process to get rid of those things, particularly since those things are fundamentally undemocratic, why should you participate in a fundamentally undemocratic process? I don't think I'm crazy for asking that question. I don't think I'm crazy for asking that question at all. I don't think that's me being overtly critical of Sanders. I don't think that's me being unfairly critical of Sanders. I think that's just a fair question for any particular human being. If I had a kid and that kid was running in an art contest, you know, the leader of art for her 2-year-old class, yeah, if it was fundamentally corrupt, where the teacher had already selected the person, why am I going to put my kid in it? Why do I want to give any legitimacy to that process at all? And I'm using a 2-year-old because I'm trying to be derisive to the process. They chose who they wanted. They chose who they wanted. They used voting to co-sign it, but ultimately they chose who they wanted through the process itself. I'm saying, why give it legitimacy? Mankind Global Media Network. Jamal, the progressive voice of the hour. Oh, thank you. I try. Behemoth 77. Bernie grandstanding Sanders wants things to change. See, I always think Company Man has a better ring to it. I think Company Man has a better ring to it. If you scream into a mic, it's time for a revolution, we need a political revolution, and you have millions of people in the country says, yes, yes, that's what we want, and you lose. Now, you might have lost anyway, but you lose, and you lose through nefarious means, meaning it wasn't above board. You can understand it's going to deflate the hell out of the people who supported you, who knew that you were cheated, for you to turn around and not be a little bit more boisterous, I guess. Not belligerent. A little bit more boisterous. I understand this is politics. And I understand from Bernie Sanders' perspective, he's constrained just based upon the things that are going on. Meaning, if he wants Hillbots to vote for him, he has to take a particular tact. Fair enough. Fair enough. But I gotta be honest, that's not necessarily a satisfying answer to me. I feel like the democracy or the republic matters more. And challenging the fact that they did this to the election is a big deal. I honestly believe it's a big deal. I get it. If he can get concessions, then Bernie Sanders was right. Like, so if this is a process where Bernie Sanders is able to get them to change that process, then Bernie Sanders' course of action was right. Hard to argue with it from a strategy standpoint if he gets what he wants in the strategy. From this kind of gut level of somebody who supported him and felt a particular way about the way they were acting, meaning Hillbots and the other side of the table, yeah, I would prefer him to call it out. It's just difference of feeling. Hey, Democrats, cut it out, Bernie Sanders. That is funny. Joan Levine, yeah, LOL, Behemoth, yeah. It's funny. These principles are hilarious. He needs to go after them, not tap dance around it. Yes, I agree. As I've read this, my feeling was I wrote something down. I don't usually write stuff down when I do this. And I thought to myself, you know, how are you trying to have a bloodless coup in this way? Like, you're literally talking about a political revolution. And revolutions, there's the term by itself has a certain connotation associated with it. You want to fundamentally change how the Democratic Party operates. Good. God bless. And you're in this camp that believes we can take back the Democratic Party. Again, good idea. God bless. You just need to implement. Most of these things, it's a matter of implementation. And every path along the way, they've slapped you, they've cheated you, they've lied to you, they've kicked you out of their party, they've gaslighted you, they've dragged you along the entirety of the way. At which point, that's all I'm asking, at which point do you say, okay, there's nothing to be had here? That's all. Telling them to cut it out is not going to work. And pussyfooting around it is not satisfying at all to me. Like, I get, from the standpoint of the person that's in the mix, like in the ensconced in this, there's certain things that they feel are hard limits. So fair enough, I get it. But this is immensely unsatisfying, some of these answers. But look, what this boils down to, if I'm being honest, regardless of how it feels, if he gets his strategic objectives accomplished, then Bernie Sanders was completely right in the path that he went about going. It would be empirically right, because he would have gotten the objectives that he wanted to accomplish. If he does not, meaning he leaves empty-handed, or he leaves just with token gestures, well, then that's another conversation. And then at this point, we're picking apart behavior about what you could have done differently. We will know when that Unity Commission meets at the last thing, this quote-unquote Unity Commission. I don't even like calling it. It's a fucking Orwellian name. The reason why if you need to create a Unity Commission, you're not united. It's a paradox. The very existence of it means you're not united. So come on. Santa Claus is real, but he keep playing 3D chess. Oh, wait. I had conflated those. Oh, here it is. Bob Ramirez says, Santa Claus is real. He keeps playing 3D chess. Help me, Bernie, Wine Kenobi. You're my only hope. Oh. All right. Yeah, Bob. That's fair. No, that's fair. They used to say Obama was doing the same thing. Obama's playing 4-dimensional chess. He's playing 5-dimensional chess. He's just losing continuously, and at some point he's going to win. That type of stuff. It's like, come on. Let me ask you this. Certainly, though, you could see where Sanders is coming from. Like, this isn't one of those things where he's losing and losing. You can't see what he's getting at. His attack here is very specific. It's very specific. He is saying what he wants. I think we need to have X, Y, Z. He's doing it in a political way because he's trying to bring other people into the mix. That's just politics. You can't necessarily hit him for things that are just a matter of politics. I don't think this is 3-dimensional chess. I think this is pretty damn straightforward. Bernie Sanders, what do you want? I think they need to get rid of superdelegates. I think we need to get, yeah, that's straightforward. That's just explicit. That's not 3-dimensional chess. He's just telling you what he wants. Cardinal, Bob, Jamal did a stream the other night where he broke down, cried, and accidentally called Sanders dad several times. He was drunk. This would have been funnier, Cardinal, if you say he wasn't drunk. He was completely sober when he did this. It would have been funnier. Behemoth 77, third party or Trump wins in 2020. Mark my words. Dax Jacobson. Most people in this chat voted third party. Why the fuck do you people keep telling the 40-ish people in this chat room we need to do exactly what we already did? Quit wasting our fucking time. That's hilarious. Yeah, I voted Jill Stein. I think a lot of these people voted Jill Stein. You're in the far left side of the sandbox, dude. Bob Ramirez. Oh no, that might end his budding DNC career. Without remorse 12, Hillary Clinton was never progressive. Becoming a president was all about a delusional legacy. Now it's been destroyed, and all she can do is promote a petty book tour. Agreed. I thought that was self-evident. Agreed. Absolutely agreed. It's sad when you think about it, man. It's sad. You lose to reality show hosts. Anybody 320 odd people in this country, and any one of them could have beat Donald Trump. They found the one person in this country, potentially on this planet, that could lose to Donald Trump, and it was Hillary Clinton. Good job. And you gave $1 billion to do it. Good job. Cynicism is poison to activism. Joan Levine, yes. You know, it's funny. I did a video that I never pushed up the other day with this thing of the left and cynicism. Like, I honestly, yeah, I did a video on it. Because my feeling was it seems to be something that's pervasive on the left. And I was kind of going into why it was pervasive on the left. Saying, look, it's not, people, how much time? I've been 40 minutes. Look, the point I was trying to make, and I'll try to be, you know, specific, and I'll try to be direct. Succinct is the word for it. I think social movements or groups of people act like individuals sometimes, or at the very least social systems respond in ways like individuals respond to things, like trauma for that moment. Say for the moment that somebody grew up without their dad. Say for the moment somebody grew up in an abusive relationship. How do those people behave? And will those people be adversely affected by the things that took place in their childhood? And the answer is yes, they're going to be affected in some way. They may cope, but they may be affected in some way. It's crazy to believe that social forces are not the same way. Seeing is, yes, it's a collection of individuals, but when those people aggregate around a certain belief system, those people respond as if they're in a traumatic situation in the same way. My point is, when you have somebody who's raises you to this level of Obama in 2008, you know, this kind of glorious emancipatory moment, this black president who seems to be this progressive, and he's screaming at the top of his lungs about hope and change and redoing politics in this country. And then you have the glorious fall. The glorious fall. I thought he was going to, I thought he was, certainly this time, At a certain point, you just stop even getting up. Stop even getting up. Oh, they're bashing the heads of Native Americans in Standing Rock. Certainly, he has to do, And then you have the situation in 2016 where you actually get the real thing. You actually get the guy that believes it, the true believer. So much so he calls himself a socialist. Just a classic Democrat, but he wants to create a distinction. And technically, he wasn't even a Democrat. He joined the party at the last minute to run as president. And they cheated that guy. So you had the glorious fall for the guy who was a fake, and then the guy who was a real deal, they just cheated him, hit him in the knees. Hit him in the knees. What would the individual feel in that situation? And say for the moment, you have that particular individual looking at a social system, and they're thinking to themselves, these people lie, these people steal, these people cheat. What these people tell me may not necessarily be true. So when you have the left has gotten to the point of they believe in false flags a little bit more virulently than they used to, you can understand why. It makes perfect sense. If you're getting to the point of, oh my God, they don't believe us when we say these things on the news, you can understand why. You're fucking liars. The left isn't crazy for responding the way that they've responded to these things. Cynicism is a byproduct. The problem is, the left are the poets. Like, the left is the side that tries to drag the country forward. The left is the one who's looking at this kind of new future, this new way of organizing, this new way of doing things. We're the conscience. I mean, whether you want to call it by divine providence, whether you want to call it God-made, we're the conscience of this nation. We're organized in a particular way where we feel, we're empathetic. We try to drag this country in a particular direction. Cynicism is a cancer to hope in this way. Cynicism is a cancer to hope. And so the party or the side that's typically on the side of hope, that's on the side of looking for the new future, has become cynics by virtue of the things that have taken place. It's not crazy, I put it that way. They're responding to things based upon their pressures in their society. It makes perfect sense. It's somewhat sad, however, that the side that's supposed to be the poets and the dreamers and the hippies and the people with the new, thinking of the new thing that's supposed to come out, pushing society forward, dragging society forward at times, the malcontents, the people who are annoyed that other people don't quite get it. Those guys, they've become the cynics. They've become the cynics. Yeah, that's a tragic thing. And I would hope that would be something that doesn't necessarily last. And the last thing I would want is for this, you know, this confirming the process of cheating at that point. Meaning, no, we didn't get anything from the Democratic Party. Yes, they did a unity commission that essentially was just this kind of show trial to get people to think that we're working together. Yes, 15 million people left the party. No, I didn't call out cheating strongly. And they gave me squat. That's what I don't want. That's what I don't want. I don't want this thing of, despite not getting squat, I still believe that we can work in the Democratic Party, and I still will participate in a rigged process. I'm Bernie Company Man Sanders. That's what I don't want. You've already had these people going into these situations once before of, oh my God, people crying on the mall when Obama is elected president. People weeping later on. People weeping when Sanders was cheated. So yeah, cynicism sucks. It's understandable, but cynicism sucks. Cynicism sucks. You can see it in my chat. There's a lot of us. There's a lot of people who are pissed off. And there are a lot of Sanders skeptics. There are a lot of Sanders skeptics. So it's like Euro skeptics. No, they aren't. There are two camps, both of which are compromise and consolidated interests. One camp is anti-Clinton, the other is pro-Clinton. There is no real war. There is a real war. Those things are fundamentally different. I'm sorry, those things are fundamentally different. You believe, and look, this is what I mean when I say there is a real war. The anti-Hillary camp, the pro-Hillary camp, you believe those things are reconcilable. I don't think those things are reconcilable. One side of it is completely antagonistic towards capital in this way. They're true believers. Some of these guys call themselves, you know, like leftists or progressives. Some of these guys are just outright socialists. They might not necessarily want to use the word. They may not even know how the term applies. But ultimately, they are far to the left. And I'm saying this to say that the other people on the other side are the corporatists. Certainly, you understand that those two things are in conflict with one another. The moderates, the term that was used, the term that was created and crafted just to kind of explain how you can take a huge amount of money but say things in this kind of lefty way, throw bones to the left, this kind of incremental bone to the left, while doing corporatist stuff. Those things are not reconcilable. Those things are antagonistic towards one another. When Sanders is out there saying, you know, you need to get rid of cash as the means of interacting with the electorate and all this other stuff, those things are completely irreconcilable to what the party is currently. It has to pick a pony. It has to pick a choice. You can't have it both ways. The Democratic Party has run the car off the road. They failed so much that you've reached this point where the society and the public itself is like, oh my God, this needs to change. And you had all these other groups that got over the hurdle of, should we do something? So we need to do something. We need to pull these guys apart. I don't think these things are reconcilable. At least not in the way that they're currently arranged. And they've, I don't want to say made them rabid, but they've, progressives have become somewhat militant. Like, this isn't one of those things where these guys just kind of lay back. They allow the Democratic Party to do whatever they do, and the centrist just kind of has the room. You believe that the left, the actual left in this country, not the faux left, even the Clinton apologists, and not apologists, let's say the appeasers, let's say the Clinton appeasers, or the corporatist appeasers, the people who for the most part try to toe the line in the middle, even though they lean more towards your side of the camp. Those things are irreconcilable. Irreconcilable. Democrats were able to pull it off before because, you know, Obama had a nice smile, and they can make the argument, hey, we're winning, we're winning, we're winning. I'm the president of the United States. We're winning. We have relevance. Our legitimacy is the fact that we've won. Can't make that argument. Can't make that argument. People are trying to take their heads off. Bernie's trying to keep it classy and act above the fray, but to people like us, it sounds weak sauce. Joan Levine, yes. Yes. And I'm trying to make that point, that there is a difference in perspectives. Like, from his perspective, he's taking a particular tact. That particular tact is to millions and millions and millions and millions of people. He's taking a particular tact. To us, it's, you know, represent your interests. That's what it feels like to us. So yeah, I agree. Yeah, which is why I left the party the day he endorsed Hillary Clinton. I don't blame you. Behemoth 77. I took him at his word during the 2016 primary. I'll take him at his word now. Behemoth agreed. Yeah, agreed to a point. Take him at his word. Yes, until there's something else that otherwise should tell me otherwise. The problem with that line, and the reason why I stopped, is because some people would say, well, dude, you've had more than enough evidence to give you otherwise. I disagree with those people. I disagree with those people. I think what he's doing makes sense. Like, from a logic standpoint, I think what he's doing makes sense. It's a strategy. He's playing a particular strategy. The people outside of it are looking at it at times are like, oh my God, including myself, what the fuck? What the fuck? But it's a strategy. Anybody who's playing a game, there are people leaning over their shoulder saying, I think you should have did that. I don't know why you did that. Bernie Sanders is no different. Unity Commission is done, son. It's been revealed that it's a dog and pony show. Surprise, surprise. Yeah, it's a dog and pony show. I agree. Joan Levine, he's trying to use the party as a vehicle. I disagree with the strategy, but I understand it. Joan Levine agreed. Agreed. A good friend that disapproves but understands. Yeah, agreed. Barbara Romero says, sure, Bernie beat me up again last night, but honestly, officer, he promised to treat me right from now on. That is so fucked up. A vehicle to do what? Get more corrupt Democrats elected? Oh, man. That's fine. I'm okay with us having this conversation, this war. And war is too strong. Because I am among brethren here. And there is no wars among brothers. What I will say. There is a difference in context for each of us. So, and what I mean by that, there's a relative difference. Your objectives are not going to be the exact same objectives as mine. In the same way that Bernie Sanders' objectives are not going to be the same as Paul Ryan's. In the same way that my mom's objectives, etc., etc., etc. Your society is awash in all of these people with different contexts and different perspectives. These things, to some degree, are relative, insofar as they line up with the natural world, with the world itself. When I come and do this show, I may completely dislike Donald Trump. I may be okay with Trump getting hit by a bus tomorrow. But if he does something that I agree with, I am compelled to say I agree with that particular thing. This is my sandbox. It's not this thing of politics. If I was a political hack, or if I was a political strategist, that would be different. I would try to find things to put an axe in Trump's back in each and every opportunity. The perspectives are different. The context is different. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. So let's nail that down. Most of action purely depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Yes, there's this thing of integrity and everything else. But those things are lagging indicators. Ultimately, what do you want to accomplish? What is the strategy to get the thing done that you want to get done? Now, when people have their attacks on Sanders, I always end up in this feeling of, what did you expect him to do given the situation? And what are you trying to accomplish now? That's how I feel. That's my thought. That doesn't necessarily mean I think you should give him a pass for the 2016 cheating. I think that's a big fucking deal. That thing kind of overrides the other stuff just because it's an issue of democracy. But again, that's my perspective without necessarily being in that exact same context as Sanders. As a human being, honestly, as a human being, he's not an alien. He's not, he's not from Mars. With the pressures that would apply upon a person, and put yourself in his shoes, not, in this shallow way. Invest yourself in his shoes. If you need to have a 420 to do it, have a 420 to do it. What are the pressures that are applied to an individual in that particular context, in that particular situation? What are the things that you would have done, and why? Why do you believe that he's doing the things that he's doing? And does what he's doing line up with what he's said prior? Now, if you're looking at this from his context, and you're coming to a conclusion saying, well, yes, from Sanders' own context, what he's saying does line up if he's doing a particular strategy. And it's not even three-dimensional chess. The strategy is straightforward. I need to get rid of these superdelegates. And I am going to use the fact that Don and Brazil came out and said they cheated as a hatchet to try to hack my way at them. Is the Democratic Party going to stand strong on that front of saying, you can go fuck yourself? We're not changing squat. I suspect that the reason why he put this piece in Politico is because he wants to get this out in the open. And he wants to, November 10th. Yeah, a few days ago. He wants to get people's eyes on it. So, if you're going to do what? Get more corrupted Democrats in? Come on. Be fair, man. Be fair. And what I mean by be fair, you've had multiple organizations. Let's say Our Revolution. Let's just stick with that one. That was the one he started, him and Jane. Fair enough. You can judge him by that. That group has been out for, what, almost like maybe a year. They've been putting people in offices, including socialists. So, this isn't... when I say there's a war, I think there is a war. I think it's this thing of, what is this party going to actually be? And he's trying to forcibly re-ensoul the Democratic Party, like some Marvel superhero, just trying to throw it in his chest. Whether he's going to be successful is another question. That's kind of besides the point. It is what he's trying to do, and it does seem like it's what he's trying to do. Having these conversations, do you honestly believe? Come on, for the people who are saying he's a sheepdog, yes, I'm gonna jump on this for a moment. Let me make sure nobody else. I hope Debbie runs for office. I would donate my last. I hope Debbie runs for office. I would donate my last time to help her get in national office. That is, I think he's talking about Deborah Wasserman Schultz. Gardner was a big fan of Deborah Wasserman Schultz. There's a picture of him. If you put in Gardner, he's wearing a Hillary Clinton hat. He's wearing a pussy hat with Hillary Forever sticker. It's Gardner. Agra has been that way too servile to the Democrats. I agree too. Look, for those who make this argument that he's been too obsequious to Democrats, that he's been this kind of step and fetch it, that he's been sheepdogging, I would say yes, you're right. Those things are true. For those who kind of make this point of saying, well, look, he's been sheepdogging and doing all this other stuff, stepping and fetching and all this other stuff. He's been servile to the Democratic Party. Fair enough. He's been sheepdogging. Fair enough. But to take it to this extra step of, it's controlled opposition. He's a puppet. He's being maneuvered as if he's, a video game character. That's where you lose me, man. Like, it's one thing to be honest about, it's perfectly fine to be honest about what you know. Like, to look at the situation and say, look, yes, he's done X, Y, Z. Does that necessarily mean that he is whatever? No, it doesn't at all. One doesn't necessarily follow to the other. Is there a path of logic that makes what he's doing make sense? And the answer again is yes. If he's trying to re-ensoul the Democratic Party and he's trying to play a political line of sorts, then yeah, it makes sense. This isn't necessarily crazy. The conversation about class is devastating to the Democratic Party the way it is. That's why I don't think it's planned opposition. Like, it's too close to the grain. It's too real. It's too straightforward. Like, if you've noticed, issues of class are not things that Democrats talk about. They haven't talked about it for a very long time. I mean, when is the last time you heard Democrats talk about the poor? You might have heard them say it somewhere recently, but that's just because of Sanders. Class consciousness is not something that the Democratic Party deals with. It destroys their business model. If you have a business model where you have plutocrats on one end and you have the left on one end, and that left is giving this kind of incremental breadcrumbs. Hey, we're still here. We're your best bet. We're your best bet. While being completely obsequious to the plutocrat. If you reveal that in an overt way, now, mind you, people already know this, but it doesn't matter if they know it. If you reveal this, if this becomes explicit, and the conversation that you're having is now about class, and the Democratic Party needs to choose a side, how do you thread that needle? You can't thread that needle. It destroys the business model. I don't necessarily think that class is a conversation that the Democratic Party, as it stands, wants to have. Anytime that you've seen Bernie Sanders and Tom Perez sit, there's an awesome clip with Bernie Sanders and Chris Hayes and Tom Perez. And Chris Hayes asked Bernie Sanders a question, and Bernie Sanders is like, the plutocrats and the billionaires on our backs. And at some point, you expected Bernie Sanders to scream out bourgeois. The bourgeois class is on our backs. Tom Perez sets himself on fire and runs out the studio as fast as he can, dancing all the way. He doesn't want to have that conversation. I think that's a false choice, man. I think that's a false choice, Chris. Yeah, I bet you would think it's a false choice. The last thing you want to have that conversation is about class. Put it in perspective. The foaming at the mouth billionaire or millionaire, whatever he is, that was on TV mad and cursing because the Democratic Party bought up the fact of millionaires and billionaires. Mad. Got all the money in the world. Would never go broke ever. And yet, I called Chuck Schumer. I called Nancy Pelosi. I told them to cut it out. I told them to cut it out. Think about that. He's calling these two senators, the people who are ahead of that particular party in both branches or both houses of government in regards to Congress. He has their phone number. Why do you think he has their phone number? You think he has their phone number because he's just a fucking awesome person? Or do you think he has their phone number because he's been giving them money? Fucking bribed. I don't think that's the conversation I want to have. That's my point. That's why I don't think it's one of those things of Bernie Sanders is controlled opposition. They're using it for blah, 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 blah. Yes, they may be trying to leverage him. Yes, they may be using him. But yes, this goes both ways. This goes both ways. This absolutely goes both ways. I don't think it's as simple as Bob Ramirez. Would Jamal ever walk away from his codependency? You know the sad and ironic part about this? I've been screaming for a new party. I've been talking about not voting for the Democratic Party. The no argument. In fact, I was going to do another video just based the no argument. Straightforward. The no argument. And explain to me why that argument is wrong and that argument is false. It's not codependency, dude. I think somebody put it the other day. You don't have a candidate. You don't have a dog in the hunt. And if you don't have a dog in the hunt, you have no means of affecting anything in the political process. How do you move the ball forward in any way? Now, I would love for this glorious moment, this emancipatory moment where everybody runs to their post office and do something. I don't know what they do, but they do something. They turn over police cars and whatnot, whatever. That doesn't look like it's happening. That does not look like it's taking place. I see people freaking out, but ultimately Donald Trump has only been doing the things that regular Republicans do. He's gross because regular Republicans are gross. They hate him because of tone. Now, how do you move the ball forward in that situation? That is the fundamental question to which I'm presented. I've said before, my morals are not so spotless that I'm not willing to take a little dirt to move things along. If you want to consider this to be a little dirt to move things along, fair enough. That perspective is perfectly valid and relevant. So is mine. So is mine. Yeah, that's a dog I'm willing to bet on. Yeah, you can call it codependency. Fair enough. Fair enough. I love this, like the left attacking the left, and I don't mean attacking in a bad way. I just mean the I have a go at Democrats because I'm like, or at Nina Turner and Bernie Sanders saying, at which point do you stop being reliant? You know, at which point do you keep getting slapped and keep making that argument? And he's making the same argument to me with Bernie Sanders. That's awesome. That's awesome. I love it. Cardinal, look at the power dynamic. The fact that Sanders is popular is of little concern to these people. The process can be manipulated as long as they don't lose donors. It's all good. Cardinal, yes and no, yes and no, yes and no. So it depends on what you're willing to use. Like, this is my argument. The entirety of my argument, my thesis in this particular case is, are you willing to use that brick? Are you willing to use that brick? Your popularity, to some degree, is your brick. Are you willing to use that in order to get what you want? Meaning, are you willing to beat them over the head relentlessly? And to what lengths are you willing to beat them over the head? To what lengths are you willing to go? Are you willing to have a press conference saying, this isn't working? I would ask the left to not vote for the Democratic Party, and we're starting something new. If that's not where you're willing to go, then all of this is for naught. All of this is for show. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I don't completely disagree with you guys. I guess I look at it from the standpoint of his popularity does matter. Otherwise, they wouldn't necessarily be cozying up to him in this way. It's just how you leverage it, how you use it. I may have a knight, I may have a bishop. Those things are very different, and depending on the position, those things may be fucking awesome or fucking horrible. In this case, his advantage is his popularity. His advantage is his popularity. His advantage is also how bad they are. Like, you have a party that's literally considered cheaters on a national level. Think about that. So it's not as simple as It's not as simple as, oh, he's just popular. That popularity matters. Popularity matters. Joan Levine, as long as voters and activists, I believe, should turn their backs on the Democrats. Yes, agreed. Agreed. I wonder why people think Democrats and Republicans are different. I have no idea. It's only because of minor stuff. It's like a gust of wind on a summer day. It's like, oh, that gust of wind is nice. It's just a gust of wind. It's not going to be there forever. It's going to be one shitty hot day after the next for both. Every so often, the Democrats give you something sweet. That's the difference. Also, Republicans, there's a faction of the Republican Party that's pretty racist. There's also that. So, there's differences, but those differences are minor. And I got to be honest, regardless of those differences, if you're in a consistent relationship where the power dynamic is so uneven, where they do whatever they want because they just assume that you'll always be there, at some point you have to leave. At some point you have to leave. You have to get up. You have to, it's like, did you fall down the steps or did your husband beat you? Which one is it? At some point you have to say, he hit me in the face and I'm getting the fuck out of here. I agree with you. D. Martin, Bernie is great at articulating populist ideas or Democratic Party problems. What's his inspired solution? Vote Democratic Party some more. Look, I think his solution would be, I am running for president in 2020 and I need these people in the party because otherwise these people are going to be shafted and cheated again. I suspect the sheepdogging thing is the last resort of a desperate man. Meaning, if Bernie Sanders is not willing to use that brick of nothing is taking place in the Democratic Party that I'm comfortable with telling the people who want to vote for me or support me to vote for these guys. If he's not willing to go there, if he's willing to go to the fallback fail position of, okay, I didn't get anything, but I'm going to try to do it anyway by getting as many people into the Democratic Party as possible so I can flood the polls. They can't keep these people out. That fallback position is immensely unsatisfying. And from an ego standpoint, it is immensely unsatisfying. I would argue debilitating. So, we'll see. Joan Levine, you thought Warren had a spine after she didn't endorse before the Massachusetts primaries. Warren didn't have a spine. Warren was Mrs. Fairweather friend Elizabeth Warren. All Democrats are weak sauce. All Democrats are weak sauce. I like Tulsi Gabbard. I do like Tulsi. Democrat ticket in 20 would be Warren and Booker. Yeah, that's the ticket Gardner wanted. That's the ticket Gardner wanted. He wanted Warren and Booker. Not Warren. What's the other woman's name? I can't think of the other woman's name of mixed descent. Sanders doesn't have a club. That's the point. All the power lies on the other side. Sanders has a club if Sanders recognizes that Sanders has a club. Let's agree on that point. If Sanders believes that he has a club, then he has one. If he doesn't, then he doesn't. And both of those things can be true, by the way. Meaning, how you use the advantage that you have at your disposal matters. It matters immensely. It matters even if you understand that it's an advantage in the first place. All those things matter. How you understand the position to which you're presented with matters a great deal. What you're willing to do in that position matters a great deal. Am I so mad at my wife that I'm willing to fake my death? Well, that's pretty extreme. How mad do you have to be to fake your death? Is it a potential advantage that you could do it? Maybe. Like, how far is Sanders willing to go for this? Matters. That matters. I know you don't think so, but it does. Rob Illinois, what the fuck is Nina Sanders and friends watching Jamal? Good job, Jay. Oh, thank you, dude. Thank you. It's fucking sad how the party turned Bernie into their little mascot. Oh, don't go there. That hurts. That hurts a little. Rob, according to Miss Thomas, Nina's lowest intern accidentally retweeted this video while choosing I'm trying to close popcorn pop-ups. Yeah. Miss Thomas dogged me on that one. Miss Thomas stuck shit with me on that one. It was funny. I was like, hey, Nina Turner retweeted my stuff. She's like, how do you know it was Nina Turner? She doesn't have an intern doing those things. But like, oh, you bastard. Bastard. Mrs. Thomas has a habit, a bad habit. She thinks that I am too full of myself sometimes. Or too sure, not too full. But too sure of myself. Too sure of my perceptions of the world. And tries to inject some doubt into those perceptions of the world. That was her way of doing that. That was her daily dose of that. Bernie seems disconnected from the desperation supporters were motivated by in the primaries. Joan Levine. How would that desperation look, Joan? I mean, what is he supposed to do? Set himself on fire? Let's see. Pocahontas endorsed Susie Orman scam prepaid credit cards. Skip Rock. Pocahontas endorsed Susie Orman scam prepaid credit cards. Oh, you talking about Elizabeth Warren? Elizabeth Warren. It's always good to question your assumptions. Yes, it is. Carmelo Harris. That's it, Bob Ramirez. Yes, yes. That's the person Gardner wanted. Kamala Harris. He said she thought she would make an awesome president. She'd be Obama 2.0. We got David McCall in the house. Let's go to Peter Enriquez first. Allowed himself and us to be screwed over and over without response. David McCall, Black Lives Matter, and Bernie. That fucker couldn't even hold a podium, much less an honorable position. You realize Bernie Sanders, among blacks, Hispanics, all these groups, he is in spades. Like, this is not one of those things where people dislike the guy. They love the guy. They love the guy. I've said this before. I've said it again. I think the left needs a hug. I think the left needs a hug. You need to be held. You need to weep ferociously in somebody's arms. You need to be held. Now, I say that to say that, yes, I understand there's a certain amount of hurt associated with it. But come on. Come on, come on. Be fair. Be fair. You got to be fair. So, first point. Many of us, I would not even have a show if it wasn't for Bernie Sanders. Put that in context. Like, many of the people that you're watching on YouTube would not have a show if it wasn't for Bernie Sanders being out there and doing his thing. That's the first point. The second point, the gains that you're seeing politically, this shift in the public view and the public's in the argument, that wouldn't exist without Sanders. Like, there's a lot of stuff that you have to bake into the cake when you're having a conversation about Sanders. It just feels like, what's the word I'm looking for? Somebody screamed. I assume they were screaming. They were typing, but I assume they were screaming, "You don't deserve Bernie Sanders!" And it's like, what do you mean deserve Bernie Sanders? Bernie Sanders is a politician who's running for office to do XYZ. Deserve is not the right word for it. It's this feeling of, he did X. Like, whatever you want to think of him, it did take place. Martin Luther King has this awesome thing in one of his speeches where he gives a speech and he's heckled by one of the people in the audience. This is an African-American kid, heckled him. And Martin Luther King, in the way that he gives speeches, this awesome way of this kind of meta-narrative about what's going on in his head and what he was thinking about. And the honesty of saying how, you know, like, how dare this kid? Do he know that I'm Martin goddamn Luther King? He didn't say it that way, but that was essentially the thing. Doesn't he know, you know, of what I've done? And, you know, I was looking at my wounds. My pride was bothering me. It bugged the shit out of me that this kid had the nerve to do X, Y, Z. And he says he starts to think of it from the context of the kid. And he starts to think of all of these things that I've promised, all of these things of this new tomorrow, me pushing and everything else, me working with the Democratic Party, me trying to get these things done. Yeah, I imagine if I was that kid, I'd be pissed off too. What the kid misses, though, is that it is Martin Luther King. Now, I'm not saying Bernie Sanders is Martin Luther King, so that's not what I'm getting at. I'm just getting at this thing of, yes, this person did something that was major. He did something that was major. I don't see anything wrong with giving him credit for doing something that was major. Yes, you can take a shot at him for decisions that you don't particularly like. Fair enough. But some of this goes beyond decisions and into issues of character. That's my issue. Some of this bespeaks of character, not necessarily about behavior. And I would argue that what he's doing is lining up with what he's saying he's trying to accomplish. I may wish he was more boisterous about it. Fair enough. And this society has this thing where they like people being Hercules as opposed to just kind of going about and doing their thing. Fair enough. We like people to be strong about the things that they do. We want people to represent us strongly. Fair enough. But is there a logical path for what he's trying to do? And when I say logical path, I mean from his context. Is there a logical path for what he's trying to do? And if there is, meaning if his perspective of the world does not in any way destroy reality, meaning those two things line up. I've always said, insofar as the person's, what they're thinking of line up with reality, fair game. Is it possible that the strategy will work? Yes. Is it possible that it wouldn't? Yes. Is it possible that he's right? Yes. Is it possible that he's wrong? Yes. It sounds like he's a person. It sounds like he's a person. That's a different question, however, as to whether or not he has dark motives or whether or not he's, doing something for some nefarious causes. I don't think there's any evidence for that at all. I don't think there's evidence for that at all. I will hold the line tonight for Sanders. God damn it. I'll put my stake in the ground. The bitter enders. Bitter enders. Hercules. I have settled for not turning his back and kneeling to evil Hillary Clinton. I left myself open with that one, didn't I? Yes, I did. It's not about how he was easily bullied. Not that he isn't giving up the shop away. And many love that. What? Oh, we have a lot of haters in today. We have a lot of haters. Luca commented, Jerry Beck insists that his chances of establishment Democrats cheating again is 100%. They have no pressing reason not to cheat. Hence my point. Hence my point. Hence my point. If the Unity Commission doesn't give him what he wants, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Like, this isn't one of those things. If I understand people have their issues and everything else, ultimately, you're stuck in the same situation that I'm stuck and waiting to see how the shit unfolds. And what I'm getting at is very specific. This is an if case scenario. If they tell you to go F yourself, Bernie Sanders, and we're not changing squat, what are you, Nina Turner, Justice Democrats, Our Revolution, what are all of these people who are trying to rehabilitate the Democratic Party going to do? And if they tell you to go F yourself, will you finally admit they had no intention of changing and this unity, quote unquote, Unity Commission was purely there for circus? So, I know they're haters. I would argue that I'm somewhere in the middle of this. I accept. The shit unfolded already a full year ago. Oh, Bob. Come on, Bob. Come on, Bob. I vote for more long videos, please. Joan Levine. A lot of people hate the long videos. That's the only reason I don't do long videos. Or try not to. I could sit here and run my mouth all day, so that's not a me thing. Skip rocks. Joan Levine's Jamal's voice is the best. Oh, thank you. Somebody said I sounded like Yoda. It's like, all right, I own it. Know who you are. Wear like armor. That way it can never be used against you. Sharing is caring and caring is needed. Yes, it is. I have to be honest. I like Sanders. Like, I haven't. I am tainted by my society. Let me say it that way. Meaning, of all of the other people who are running, and you're talking about somebody who's literally trying to forcibly reinsult the Democratic Party like it's some vampire, like on like an episode of Angel, where that gypsy reinsouls him, and Angel just wakes up screaming and whatnot. That's what's taking place. A metaphysical reinsouling by Bernie Sanders. That's what he's trying to do. Whether or not he can pull it off is a separate story. Separate story. I understand people are pissed. I understand some people are massively upset. I flip out myself at times. But come on. Come on. You gotta be fair. You gotta be fair. Reminds me, have a group in to watch last November's TYT election. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Them flipping out. Yeah, them flipping out. Anna coming back, losing her shit. I watched that TYT. Yeah, I watched that one. That was an amazing thing to watch. Like, all of them were dejected. It's almost like somebody ripped their heart out. Yeah, it was brutal. It was brutal. I would imagine someone was crying. I think what's her name was crying on TYT Politics. They were flipping out. I watched the election total come in, and I thought to myself, I knew she was fucked when she didn't win Virginia outright. Like when Virginia was taking like a slow toll, like it took forever to Virginia for it to come back. And Virginia is for the most part a purple state, but it's been going blue pretty solidly for the past God knows how long. And it was like, holy shit, Virginia is in question. Virginia is still in question. Virginia is still in question. And then you saw one fall after the next, and it dawned on you. That guy that was a reality show host a few months ago is now going to be in charge of $1 trillion military budget. And probably the most sophisticated internal spying apparatus in the history of the world. Donald Trump. I have to be honest, I was shattered for a few days. Not because I wanted Hillary Clinton to win, but it was this like, oh my God, what does this mean? It was, what does this mean? Look, I think he's a loose cannon. Ultimately, he's only really done Republican stuff, but it doesn't necessarily mean he's not a loose cannon, if that makes sense. Like, they're acting like he's a demonic force and all this other stuff. He's a Republican. He's functioned and behaved as any other Republican would have behaved in that office. And I suspect Mike Pence would be worse. And they're being immensely hypocritical, having to go at Trump over stuff that they themselves were doing when Obama was in that office. Dax Jacobson. Re-ensouling is from Supernatural. We are always talking about Supernatural. No, Angel on Angel. Angel was re-ensouled. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Oh God, my geek moment. I'm geeking off. Angel the Vampire and Buffy the Vampire Slayer spawned off a darker show called Angel. I used to love Angel. I used to love that show. He was a champion, like a cosmic champion. It's not just what they would call themselves. Higher bigs considered him a champion. From a god's point of view, he was a champion. I love those themes. So, yeah, he was re-ensouled. He was a vampire. He was a vampire with a soul. The gypsy punished him by giving him a soul. I mean, he was having all this massive level of guilt over the things that he's done over the course of his life. He was a nasty and disgusting vampire that was brutal, kind of like the Democratic Party. The gypsy, having to go at him because of him killing her family, chose to give him back his soul as punishment. And all of the crimes, all of the sins, all of the bad things that he's done over the past 200, 300, 400 years came back and weighed on his conscience. He found himself so racked with guilt that he was living on the streets eating rats for decades. I don't expect Tom Perez and Chuck Schumer to be on the streets eating rats for decades. I don't expect that. I do expect that if you have a situation where you break what's there, then yeah, you can get it something different. I still stand by my analysis. 2020 is going to be a fucking war because of what 2020 means. Meaning, the war that's being waged for 2020 is one of the battles that's taking place here with regards to these things. The reason why I'm making this specific video and why I'm using this specific thing in regards to the superdelegates is because what takes place now will affect what takes place in 4 years. My wife always laughs when I'm playing chess, and she's like, I mean, why are you guys moving that? There's like 5 pieces between those things. Because whether something takes place in 10 moves or whether something takes place in 2 moves, if those moves are forced, doesn't matter. It could be the exact same move. You're going to hit that bus, you're going to hit the bus. He knows he's doing this now because he has to do it now. He has to get rid of those superdelegates before the next election comes around, or it's for naught. Jerry Becker's right. They would cheat him again if he doesn't do anything to get rid of those superdelegates and that other stuff, the other rigged processes. So yeah. Check out Ovation Eddie, a Trumper but Trekkie and Democratic critic. Ovation Eddie. I'll check him out. I will check him out. I'm still delighted Hillary Clinton lost. That was mission number 1. Bernie would still be covering for her if she had won. I feel the same. It was like, God damn it, Trump lost, but yeah, Hillary won. That's it, and it was such a weird feeling. I went back to work, and there was a little light in me that even though Trump was president of the United States, I knew those fuckers lost. I told them they were going to lose, and they lost. Robert Pouquet Ray. I'm more diplomatic, so in that sense, it was a brilliant move to let those women speak. They were in tears and only angry from frustration of not being heard or validated. Yeah, agreed. It's no point in making a stink on stage. Let them speak. Just let them speak. Anything that you do, it's like, in regards to human behavior, there are going to be a range of behaviors that you can take. Somebody's going to pick an issue with any of those behaviors. Like, there is no clean behavior that you could take that some perspective is not going to take an issue with. The political thing is, what's the least worst, or what's the least amount of damage I can do? You know what the least amount of damage? Step away. Let him have the stage. He did the right thing. He did the right thing. We need to take our country back by not feeding Alex. Stop buying from Walmart. Agreed. I don't buy from Walmart. Amazon. Oh, yeah. Stop buying from large brands or big box stores, and stop using UPS or State Farm insurance. We don't need that stuff. Alex Summers. I agree with you, man. I actually agree with you. I need you to text Miss Thomas and tell her to stop using Amazon. That's the first point. I don't use Walmart. Neither does she. I've shamed her into not using Walmart. It's not easy, man. And I don't mean that in the sense of just an individual thing. You can stop going to stores. That's not all that difficult to do. The hard part is getting it. The public doesn't understand that there is a link between what it does versus what happens in the external world. Meaning, the things that I spend my money on has an effect in the external world. If I am putting money behind a product and that product is turning around and doing something that's heinous, then I am supporting something that's heinous. This is everything from eating meat, being a carnivore, being part of the meat industry. I mean, keep in mind, half of this stuff is global. Half of the global catastrophe is animal ag. If I am eating hamburgers, if I am eating chicken, if I'm eating those things, then I myself am helping to cause this particular thing. Same thing with shopping at Walmart. Yes, I'm contributing to this person not getting paid well. I'm contributing something that's taking place overseas. All of these things are linked in some way. It's almost like there's no way to get around it. The system itself is somewhat of a systemic issue. I don't know how you get the population to be aware of it. I just don't. Certainly those people know that shopping at Walmart, and those people are not getting paid squat. Some of those people are not even able to afford Thanksgiving meals. In no way does it stop people from shopping at Walmart. In no way. Chick-fil-A was spending money on essentially attacking gay organizations. And people were still going to Chick-fil-A. In no way making connection to the fact that the $10 or the $3 that you spend on that piece of chicken is going into what's attacking the interests of homosexuals or the LGBT community. I don't know how you make the connection. I don't even know if you can make the connection. I suspect that there will be some kind of environmental thing that allows you to take power and allows you to do XYZ, to kind of have a bully pulpit to try to pull the debate and everything else over. But it seems like any attack or push is just responded by pushing in the other direction, meaning nothing changes. Everything just spins its wheels. I don't know how you get past it. I don't know how you get past it. Not to mention you're trying to overcome people's self-interest. So, hey, you need to stop shopping at Walmart because you're fucking those people over who are working there at Walmart, in addition to the people abroad. Yeah, but I can buy this for $2 at Walmart. You expect me to not buy this for $2 at Walmart? I'm already cash strapped. I'm already barely making ends meet. You expect me to not buy this stuff at Walmart? You expect me to pay more? I can't afford to pay more. Like, you run into certain logical things, like where you as a leftist, you're right, just as a flat thing of, hey, we need to stick together as a society, we need to work together, we need to band together, etc., making sure people have fair wages, etc., etc., etc. But you're putting that on the individual and the system itself, saying, look, what you buy has an effect in the external world. That's true. That's a flat fact. If you bought things differently, if you changed your spending habits, you would affect the wider world. That is also true. It's a flat fact. It's a capitalistic system. Yes, we're beholden to that system to some degree, but that also works in the other way around. Providing it's not something that you need. Meaning, yeah, if it's something that you need that's a staple, then yeah, you're not going to have any choice in the matter. Meaning if it's oil, if it's power, or something like that. Dominion Power. Do you have a choice by taking Dominion Power? No, Dominion Power has, for the most part, a monopoly in Virginia. Yeah, I'm running my mouth. I feel you. I feel you. It's not that you're wrong. It's just that's harder to do than say. I went to bed last night with a Kool-Aid smile when she lost. Me too. I did too. I told you, man, I voted for Jill Stein. I could not get over the hurdle that they can cheat, blatantly cheat, in the open. And the world goes on like nothing just happened. Nothing just happened. So yeah, I thought it was a big deal. So part of me felt like this is divine justice. This is divine justice. This country would have to eat its peas at some point. It's going to eat its peas now. This is divine justice. Couldn't happen to a better person. If Trump is good old Jim Crow, then the GOP is James Crow-esque. GOP, including Flake and Co. by voting record, objects to Trump style. Yeah, stuff is tone. They dislike his tone. Boycotts of large corporations are pointless because they will always have enough customers that trapped from buying from them. Yeah, and that's kind of my point. Yeah, you're making my point. It's like, how do you, there's some cases where you can't get around that hurdle. And even if you could get around it from a technical standpoint of saying the public may be inclined to do it, oftentimes the public don't do it. It looks at these things as individuals. They don't do it. Being strong can blind people like I must win, must have, can be blind. Yes, Robert Bouquet, right? David McCall, nope, he didn't want to give them the podium. I don't have magical powers like you do, David. Well, I don't know what he wanted to do. All right, it's 1 hour 30. This went a little long. This went longer than I thought. But when we have these conversations about Sanders, actually when I have these conversations about Sanders, I feel like this is hugging the left. It's like, it's okay. Just let it out. Let it out. Just let it out. Weep in my arms. It's okay. It's just us. That type of thing. I'm trying to be empathetic and loving. But at the same time, being honest. When Sanders does something that goes against what I think he should be doing, yeah, I bitch and moan. When Sanders does something that I think is right, I say, good job. I try not to let the fact that it's Sanders change how I would do my story based on how I feel about the story, if that makes sense. If that makes sense. Clearly, I'm in his camp. And clearly there are things that he does where I'm like, what the fuck? Can't believe you're doing this. Be a man. Grow a spine. Yeah, so I would do that. But ultimately, this thing boils down to the issue of strategy. And whether or not you believe their strategy would work. I don't necessarily think his strategy is crazy. I just wish it was more boisterous. I just wish it was more boisterous. I want to see what takes place when the unity reform, quote-unquote unity reform, I hate even calling it that, it's fucking Orwellian, but the quote-unquote reform commission, what takes place in the end? What takes place in the end? If they come out that saying, we're keeping our superdelegates, we're continuously closing those primaries, you guys can go fuck yourselves. We're not making any changes. Does Nomika Kantz, does TYT, does Justice Democrats, does Nina Turner, does Bernie Sanders, does people in these unions, do they finally come to Jesus? Do they finally come to Jesus and say, okay, they're going to keep a rigged process, we're not going to participate. I'm going to leave it at that because that is my thesis. And so I want to bring it back around to the thesis. Let me know what you think. I'm curious what other people think about it. I mean, granted, I've been having a conversation with the audience, but I am curious about, I'm curious about what everyone else thinks. So feel free to discuss. Let me know. If you think I'm a fanboy like Gardner said, fair enough. If you think I'm being too hard on Sanders, again, fair enough. I get both sides from that. But let me know what you think. This is the left. This is our sandbox. This is the time to have conversations. And one of the things I love about this particular channel is it tries to be brilliantly ferocious in regards to going after a story with a particular amount of context without necessarily being stilted in this. I want to hear your opinions. I'm curious about what other people think. And if by some weird chance that Nina Turner's secretary or Nina Turner's tech person or the janitor that's just so happening, cleaning up the offices falls up on the page and they're like, holy shit, this is what these people are thinking. It's a magical moment. It's a magical, glorious moment. They actually see it and they read it and like, holy shit, this is what these guys are thinking. So I'll leave it at that. What are they going to do if all of the things that they've wanted have gone for naught? Leave it at that. All right, guys. If you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the Patreon. Thanks, everyone. The article is at the bottom, I believe. If it's not there now, it will be there soon. Thanks, guys.